I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is Rules and Open Government Committee meeting for December 4th, 2013. Unless there are any changes to the agenda order, we'll start at the beginning with the City Council agenda for December 10th. Anything to talk about on page 1?
Mayor, we noticed it's 9 o'clock closed session. I don't know if we need a 9 o'clock closed session. We have a personnel item. We have one litigation matter right now, and I think a fairly abbreviated labor discussion plan right now. So I think we can safely start at 9:30.
9:30, okay. Anything else on page 1? Page 2 or 3? Page 4 or 5? Item 3.6, the ordinance related to office holder candidate legal defense funds. Is that ready to go?
That's not ready to go. Mayor, I think I'm going to ask to drop that at this point. I think we have an FPPC issue, and I would just bring it back when we're ready, because I don't think we'll be ready by the 17th. We might as well just kick it into next year.
Okay. Anything else on page 4 or 5?
Mayor, would this be an appropriate time to ask a question, a process question?
Yes.
So, and this question would be for Rick. 4.1, the TEFRA hearing.
Yes.
So the process question that I have is that, usually you would do a funding hearing after all land use is already been voted on and passed or denied. And so in this particular case, 2 out of the 3, they're existing projects. They're, some of them are refinancing, and, those ones appropriately, we would be able to hear those. But on the 70 South Jackson TEFRA hearing, I believe that's scheduled to be heard in the evening.
Yes, that's 11.5 on the evening agenda.
Right. So what happens? I mean, isn't that putting the cart before the horse? I mean, what happens if in the evening the council deadlocks like it did last week?
Yeah, and I think that's really a council call as to whether it wants to take it up or not. It really has the option to. I would recommend opening the hearing because we've noticed it and we don't want to renotice it.
Right.
But you can continue item B3 specifically, or continue the whole item if the council wants to wait until it actually takes up the land use item 11.5. It's really, I mean, to address your concern about deal with the land use issue before you deal with, this is just a TEFRA hearing that we're required by law to hold at some point, but it's a question of timing.
So would we be able to bifurcate and act on 1 and 2 and then continue 3 until after we hear?
Yes.
So we would be able to, that would be an option?
Yes.
Okay. So, and we could make that, we can come to that option on Tuesday at the afternoon council meeting.
Yes, and rules may want to recommend it, but at least you need to open the hearing first.
Right,
Yeah.
which is what, I would want to do.
But yeah, you can do it Tuesday.
Well, that's why we've noticed it, so we probably should open the hearing. The question is there a requirement that you deal with the land use first? Because it seems to me the TEFRA hearing is part of the financing mechanism, and in some cases you're not going to have your land use entitlements before you get your financing. In fact, you need to get your financing lined up before you can actually start the entitlement process on some of these projects.
It's not a legal requirement. The concern in the past has been that you don't send a message that we're in favor of this project by going through this and voting in favor of it before you take the land use issue up separately. So really, again, it's a process issue of how you want to take it. It doesn't, you're not legally bound if you approve it in the TEFRA portion to approve the land use portion. So it's just a question of what's the message. And typically it's in the context of the Planning Commission taking the action before the Planning Commission has it. The Planning Commission's already heard it, but it really comes down to what the council's preference is.
And I guess a follow-up question would be is if we did hear all three and took action on all three before the actual land use item is acted on, what happens if the council deadlocks again or denies, and this has already been approved? So then what happens to that?
All the TEFRA hearing is sort of a requirement under the Internal Revenue Code. The ability to finance or issue the bonds when there's no project because of
Okay.
11.5 is rejected, it wouldn't happen.
Okay, so we're not on.
You're not obligated, no.
We're not, and not on the hook for
No.
any of.
And these aren't city bonds.
Okay,
These are, we're sort of a conduit by, only because we are the agency that, under federal law, we're required to hold the hearing, but it's really a
Okay.
state agency that's doing the bonding.
right, and I'm not saying that we not hold the hearing, but again, it is a process thing. I think the first two are perfectly fine. I think they're perfectly fine in the order that's being recommended. But it's number three, and again, I think my concern is sending a message that, we're approving something, assuming that it's going to be, the land use is going to be approved, and the message that it sends to folks, that think that, we already have our minds made up. So, thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments from the committee on how to handle this? So we have, what was the agenda item?
11.5 is the land use item, is the rezoning. And this is item 4.1B3 that is the TEFRA hearing on proposed bond issuance.
Well, if we don't have the land use approval on 11.5, then the whole thing is moot, because they're not going to issue bonds
nothing to fund.
with no project. So
Okay.
I think just opening the hearing and then saying we'll take action, we'll continue that portion of the hearing until after 11.5
You could do that.
seems to make sense. We can take the public testimony if there is any, so that anybody who wants to can come down. But there's no reason to have the debate on the vote. We might as well do it all as one package. That seems to make sense. So I don't know how you would describe that in the agenda.
I think you can do it at the meeting. It's agendized, and then the motion could be made there, or the clerk
So the
could
motion
add.
would be to approve.
2 and 3.
Do we actually approve? What is the action on a TEFRA hearing?
You approving the issuance of the bond. So
Okay.
item B is consider resolution approving the issuance of the bonds.
All right, so a motion would be then to approve the resolution for B1 and 2 and defer the approval of resolution on B3 until after the hearing on 11.5. So
That's a good
that's
way.
not overly confusing. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I think that's a reasonable way
yeah, that works.
to deal with it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on page 4 or 5? Page 6 or 7?
We'd like to request that 4.3 get moved to consent.
That's
Staff,
satellite housing loans for
Yes.
Willow Glen Woods affordable housing? Okay.
And I think that's also in District 6, not 7.
okay.
Anything else on 6 or 7?
On item number 8, this is the medical marijuana establishments. Staff is requesting this be heard first in the evening.
Yeah.
Anything else on page 8 or 9? Staff, back to the 8.1 medical marijuana establishments. How do you anticipate handling the staff presentation on that? It seems to me that there have been some significant events since this was last in front of the City Council, most notably the memorandum from the Attorney General's office about what the federal enforcement priorities are going to be, and had some cases that have happened since we last considered it, and want to bring the council briefly up to speed on those. And I don't know what else you had in mind.
Thank you, Mayor. Angelique Ada, Assistant to the City Manager. It was going to be just a brief overview, nothing not an in-depth presentation, simply a quick overview of what's covered in the memo, and then any legal issues obviously would be addressed by the City Attorney. We do anticipate a number of members of the public, particularly from the school district and from residential areas, attending the meeting and speaking at the meeting as well. And they would be the ones that provided information to the city manager's office that was contained in the memo. And then we'd be there to answer any questions.
Okay, so who would talk about what the
I
Attorney
think,
General of the United States thinks about?
I think it's a
stuff?
tag team. I think the manager's office is taking the lead on this, but we're there to talk about any developments in the law. I know that there's a request to seek direction on the proposed ban or additional regulations. So I imagine that would be the conversation.
Okay, so you're not planning to go through the past actions with the ordinance and all of
No.
that again?
No.
I don't think that's necessary. It's really what's happened since and then get direction to
Correct.
proceed as you've requested.
Correct.
Okay, so how long do you think the staff part of the presentation will take?
I would say 5 to maybe 10 minutes at the most. Again, it'll just be myself and Laurel Pervetti in the box giving a brief overview, explaining the maps, if there's any questions on the maps that are attached, which all the council members should receive a larger version in hard copy before the meeting. And then again, present to take any questions and any other issues that you'd like us to address. We'll be prepared to discuss the history if that's what you'd like us to do, but we're certainly not going to make another presentation on the same.
Okay, and those maps, say, should have or already have been
If they haven't
delivered?
made it to your office, they will by
Okay.
Friday, absolutely.
And are the maps online in a color form that you could?
They've been
See,
attached to the memo. They are not in color. They were done in PDF black and white by 8.5 by 11, but they will be provided to the council. We were trying to request that they also be linked in color and a larger version so the public could see that as well.
We can do that.
Okay,
You just provide us the file.
okay,
Okay, because I think it's helpful to see it in color
Sure.
anytime you're looking at maps.
okay. I'll have Laurel do that.
Okay, anything else, Councilor Oliverio?
Question on the maps. Those basically show, there was 2 maps on the staff memo, and do they show different alternatives and what the impact would be on those?
The difference on the maps is the distance from schools and the sensitive uses, one being the 600 feet and how many parcels that leaves in the city for potential locations of collectives, and then the second one is the 1,000-foot distance.
And does it net out how many facilities would remain open at that point? Do you
It
remember
does.
those offhand?
It does. I believe
Approximates are fine.
1,400 and 1,500 different parcels that would be available for collectives to locate in.
But does it have a net of what would be left of the existing facilities? And if council passes X policy, then this affects X number of them, versus if you do policy B, it affects XX.
It does not.
Do you think that would be difficult to?
I don't know. I'd have to check in with planning, but I can certainly make that request and see what we can come up with. If we're not able to have it memorialized in a map, perhaps we could at least give you the numbers. But again, I don't know the answer to that. I'll ask Laurel and see.
And then if a question came up that evening that said, how many would be effective that have 0 lot lines of residential? Would planning staff be prepared to answer that question?
We could look at that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Rose?
So I think I heard we're going to know the number of them that exist right now, or do we already know that?
We know the number of them that exist right now.
Can you say that right now? How many?
Is it 89? I think.
I think the staff report's at 82.
Okay.
So it's gone down some. So I thought it was over 100. Wasn't it 150
It,
at one point?
it fluctuates, and it fluctuates daily, depending on, it really does. It does. So, tomorrow it could be over 100, and it really does depend on the day that you're asking.
Kind of hard plotting that then. So are you, so is that what we're is that what we're asking, is plotting these things on a map too, that we can see where they are now, or was that what you were thinking of?
So one of the attachments to the memo is actually a list breaking down the collectives by name and address and council district. The maps are a different attachment, and they show parcels that would remain if you expanded your enforcement areas, those parcels that are left over for the collectives to locate within or move to if they're not already located within them.
So parcels containing what now? They're just blank spots of land? I mean, what,
Well, some of the collectives might already be located in those.
but you're not
within
really
those parcels.
designating, they're just saying they could?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And it's, and the parcels that remain after you take into consideration maintaining a minimum distance from residential, schools, community centers, libraries, things of that
So
nature,
private property, basically, not public property?
for the most
Or we're
part.
not doing a reuse type agreement with the medical marijuana facility, I don't think?
No.
Okay.
You should run up that yesterday.
Yeah.
No, I'm being facetious.
Supposed to be nonprofit. Anything else on page 8 or 9? About 10 or 11, 12 and 13 are financing authority agenda items, Hayes Mansion refunding, Ice Center refunding.
These are private placements. Mayor, we will have bond counsel and financial consultants with us, and would ask that we get a time certain, just to be able to most efficiently use them and minimize cost.
Want to take it up after the ceremonials before the consent calendar? Just with the whole financing authority thing.
There are no ceremonials next week?
We've got some ads with ceremonials.
Oh, okay.
There would be some ceremonials. So that would be whatever it is, 1:30, shortly after 1:30 then that's probably the best way for the outside consultants. Additions, I have some requests for additions. A commendation to Michael Burns for his service at VTA. Commendation to Santa Visits El Viso Foundation. Commendation to Farrell Podgorsic for Bark in the Park Festival and some related organizations. Presentation of commendation to Katrina Lohr and Steve Gordy for 13th Street Chalk Art Festival. To be heard in the evening is the request, so 1, 2, 3 in the afternoon, 1 to add in the evening. Have a request for excused absence for Councilmember Constant from yesterday's meeting due to the death of a close family member. Any other requests for additions? That's all I had in writing.
Ready for motion?
Yeah, I think we're ready for a
Motion
motion.
to approve with changes noted and additions.
We don't have any sunshine waivers on this, I believe.
No, we don't. Mayor, just a question on the medical marijuana establishments. Are we taking that first in the evening? The question, I only asked the question because noted in the rocket ship item 11.5, judging from past rocket ship items, you get a lot of kids there.
That's true.
And I don't know if you
I
want
was-
to have them wait.
I was planning on expanding our room booking and talking with Rocket Ship and letting them know, so they could wait. If they don't want to be in there during that item, they can, I'll have a space for them.
Why don't we have the kids first?
Yeah,
Okay.
why don't we have rocket ship?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Marijuana second?
Or would you want to just manage all planning? Because I think there's only one other item. So the other two items are dropped.
So to be heard last in the evening instead of first for
Yeah.
medical marijuana?
I think that's a better idea.
Kids first.
Yeah, let's just do that way. Land use first is probably, other than rocket ship, there's 5 minutes.
Okay.
It looks like.
So I'd alter my
Okay,
motion for
Angela.
land use first.
So I'll defer to you all, but I had a request from a number of parents that have daycare issues that the item be heard first, so, but you've got
But the-
children on the other item, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm presuming the kids aren't going to come to the marijuana item, but the kids are
No,
likely to
they're
come to
not
the
unlike-
rocket ship item.
No, it's a
It's a daycare.
daycare issue,
Yeah.
childcare issue.
That's the daycare's what I talk about.
You can't make it, I'd say just go planning first, and those are shorter items than the potential length of the other item, so it's either or not.
Okay.
Do we have an estimate that I can at least give the,
Not before 8?
we could say
Probably,
that? 8 o'clock?
that would be a pretty good estimate. I wouldn't say not before 8, 'cause if we get 15 minutes early, I would like to be able to start. I mean, I have no idea how long the rocket ship thing will take.
Okay,
I doubt that there will be as many people as the last rocket ship item, but you never know.
okay.
Okay? Motion?
Yeah, approval with making the planning items first in the evening and followed by the other
Okay.
one item.
All right,
Thank you.
Second.
that's the motion. All in favor? Got a request to speak, Mr. Wall?
Sir, with reference to item 3.4, the police officer's contract, I think that this will not stop the exodus of police officers and recruits. So I think ongoing efforts to retain our police officers and recruits should be continuously upgraded. With reference to item 3.6, the Legal Defense Fund, I really believe that this fund should be started as soon as a person runs for office or have the ability to do that. And I think contributions or the fund should be able to be used to raise money for this fund because it's a foreseeable, reasonable business expense. If a candidate or an elected person got into trouble, and the way it's written right now, you couldn't use that money for mass communications. And I think that mass communications reasonably flows from the intent of this fund to gain money to protect the candidate and or the elected person. With reference to 4.3, it's a little light on information as why a forgiveness of pre-development loans totaling $100,000 to the Satellite Housing Incorporated for the development of the Willow Glen Woods Affordable Housing Project site. I think a little bit more information should be forthcoming for this forgiving of this loans. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you vote on this, I think I'm going to reconsider my thinking on the not before 8 o'clock issue. Rather than having all of the marijuana advocates coming down at the same time as all of the kids and the schools, because they don't know when it's going to be heard, it'd be better if we said not before 8. If we have to take a 15-minute break, we take a 15-minute break.
Yeah. I'll change my motion to
Okay, so
include that.
so the
Change.
land use would be first, but the marijuana would be not before 8. That way they
I'm
don't have to
certain.
show up earlier, just in case we have a crowd, or two crowds. On that motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. That's approved. December 17th, last meeting of the calendar year. Happy occasion. Anything to talk about on page 1? Page 2 or 3? Page 4 or 5? Page 6 or 7? Page 8 or 9? I notice one item I expected to see is not here, and that's the return of the RFP on the ESCO, the energy service companies, that I thought was all done before Matt was leaving, and we expected it for the 17th.
We
Do you
did
know
not
why?
discuss that today, so I'll need to check on it.
Okay. And I have no written requests for additions. Any other requests for additions? Mr. Wall, you want to speak?
Item 4.3, North San Jose Traffic Impact Fee Incentive Program, and the continuation of construction tax suspension for office/R&D, that would be item 4.4. I think it's really going to be hard for the elected folks, especially the formidable mayoral candidates who sit before me, are going to have to explain how you rob Peter to pay Paul, with reference to siphoning off traffic funds to give incentives for businesses to be here, and then coming back to the taxpayers after one of you will get elected and the rest won't, and then asking them for a $1 billion parcel tax increase to fund traffic improvements, especially in that item 4.4. So I think that's a really tough way, and I think this is one of the reasons why the city has these huge deferred maintenance costs, is because of items like this, where these fees are set up for a certain reason, and council, with their provincial wisdom, decides to change that and to defer this costs, and then have to come back at a later date, poor mouthing to the taxpayers that the roads are going to fall out behind them, and have them put it on a partial tax that's uniquely and structurally unfair to property owners. So I've said my piece on this many times before, and the basis is that you're going to go forward with this, and then you're going to make the taxpayers actually subsidize this gifting of public monies as inducements for companies to come locate here. Thank you.
That concludes public testimony on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. That's approved. Review of upcoming study session agendas. We don't have anything set. What is the next date that we have that we're holding?
Let's see, it's in January because we did release the December 9th date. Next session is on Saturday, January 18th. Neighborhood Association priority setting session.
Okay. That one will, I believe, happen as usual.
Location?
Probably right here,
What's the date again?
I believe it's in the Rotunda.
Saturday the 18th, here and the Rotunda,
I believe it's only in the Rotunda
Okay.
on the 18th, Saturday,
Saturday the 18th.
9 a.m. to noon.
And that's neighborhood priority setting?
Neighborhood
Yes.
priorities, yeah. And then after that, is there one the following week when we have the holiday? week?
Yes, we have Monday, well, actually, it's not the following week later, Monday, February 10th, the council senior staff budget planning.
What about dates we're holding that we haven't filled?
I believe that's it up until that point. And
Okay.
we've got additional dates through
Beyond that.
February and on.
So I guess what I was getting around to is the week of the holiday week, which is the 20th or so of January. We don't have a study session pegged in there either that Monday or Tuesday.
That's correct.
Okay, because I'm likely to be gone to the Conference of Mayors meeting, just planning ahead. All right, legislative update, we have nothing at this point, nothing to talk about. Meeting schedules, public record, I have some requests to speak on the public record. Martha O'Connell.
Speaking for the Senior Commission about our motion on mobile homes, asking that there be no change to the Housing General Plan or zoning that would take out mobile home parks as affordable housing. I spent the last 2 days getting a headache reading the Nexus study, underlining it, making a ton of notes, and this ties directly into that letter. Also, the fact that the Mercury News says that we only have enough money to provide 300 units per year of affordable housing. Mobile homes currently provide over 10,500 affordable housing units in San Jose. And if we start picking away at them, we're going to be in bad shape. It would take us over 30 years at the 300 unit figure per year to get back up to what the mobile homes provide. There are currently 564 mobile homes in the proposed urban villages, 564. There are a number of the parks that also border the urban villages. So I encourage you not to allow any changes in the general plan or the housing or the zoning that would delete this fabulous pool of affordable housing for our citizens.
Richard McCoy.
Good afternoon, Richard McCoy, the Senior Commission. I'm agreeing with Martha on the affordable housing for the seniors. There's really not enough of it in San Jose. I think San Jose is becoming an area where you have to have a lot of money to live. On the average price of a two-bedroom rental, it's $22.50. Most seniors, practically all seniors who live on a fixed income of $1,000, $1,500 can't afford that. They can't afford their mobile homes because they own them and they rent the property. So it's a good place for them to live. Otherwise, a lot of the seniors are going to be forced out of the San Jose area because they will not be able to afford living in these urban villages. So going along with what we recommend in our plan is that we stick to the protection of the motor homes for the seniors. Thank you.
Joyce Reborn.
Joyce Rayborn, Senior Commission Chair. I concur with my colleagues heartily. Thank you, Richard. 8% of our seniors are below the poverty line, and as has been pointed out, the mobile homes manufactured housing would be a wonderful solution if we could increase that number at the perhaps San Jose budget, and planning could divert some budget to that serious problem. The problem's not going to go away. It's not going to become obsolete. It's not temporary. And even as this is the generation that picked our prunes and apricots and made Silicon Valley, well, what is now Silicon Valley, it used to be the Valley of Heart's Delight. And even though our agricultural past is faded into the background, the seniors' needs have not faded. And even as this generation passes on, we're going to get thousands more seniors who cannot afford to live here without help from our city. San Jose has a reputation for innovation and problem solving, and we need to direct that impetus toward helping our senior citizens. The upcoming seniors are going to be at the bottom end, many of them are at the bottom end of this widening gap between the haves and the have-nots, which has been well publicized in the Valley. The gap is increasing. We have the very rich, we have the very poor. I read in the newspaper this morning that San Jose reiterated the fact that California has the highest poverty rate in the entire United States, factoring in the cost of living. San Jose is a major city in California. We need to show the rest of the country and the rest of the state an example by taking care of our senior population. Thank you.
David Wall.
Sir, items C, which was presented by Her Honor Vice Mayor Nguyen about Summerhill properties. It was noted that the city was right to not allow that request for the cemetery to go forward due to misrepresentation and detrimental reliance issues by people who bought those homes. Item D and H refer to the police department and the city's painfully low mitigation efforts to try to save our valiant police officers from leaving. I think more work need to be done. On item E, Levitt Pavilions, I'm very concerned, even though it's a well thought out plan by His Honor Councilmember Liccardo, that an unintended consequence will be the diminution of value to surrounding properties due to noise and traffic concerns, and also to the properties that have a property-based innovative PBID, development fee, an assessment fee. I certainly wouldn't want something like that happening to my property where I'd have to pay to have music blasted in my house. Now we go to item F. There's this continuation of construction tax suspension for office and R&D. We already tendered that argument, but that's real. I mean, that is the casebook study of how things in this city get deferred, and then some other council and some other generation has to come up for the money for these inducements. Now, the inducements may pan out or they may not, but if the inducements do pan out, then funds from that profit should be funneled back into the Department of Transportation's capital program. That residential nexus study, Mr. Mayor, just look at the disclaimers from that Kaiser Marston report. I think you should ask for your money back. Thank you.
That concludes public testimony on the public record. Or is there anything the committee wants to pull for discussion?
Motion to note file.
Second.
Motion is to note and file the public record on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. That's approved. Next item are item G2, Beautiful Neighborhoods Initiative. It's a city-sponsored event, District 6. Motion is to approve that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. That's approved. Next item, G3, memorandum from Councilmember Call regarding leaf blowers and the priority setting session. I guess the first question would be, do we have a date for our next priority setting session? I don't know that we've set that, but it ordinarily would be in February.
Right, and I think we've, in differing circumstances, either taken a regular council meeting or a special session. We do have an open slot for a study session on Tuesday, February 18th, which would be immediately after one of these holidays.
Okay, and then in terms of openings on the list or the length of the list, we're working on that, and we got a couple of months before we'll know where we are. Okay, so that's just it. Councilor Collery, you want to speak to your memo?
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor. I'm just trying to give as much advance notice as opposed to oftentimes the week before priority setting, people are putting different ideas through, and so I'm just trying to go through the proper process just so the mayor and council as well as staff know what different suggestions might be made during priority setting session. I'm not asking for any staff action or any work at this time, and the reason why I'm bringing this forward now is there are a few reasons. One is that, as many know, that I've been on the Air District now for 4 years, just finishing my year as chair, and there are opportunities for us to work with other entities like the Air Resources Board and the Air District in pulling resources, and in many cases getting resources from those entities in order to improve our air quality. And if we can do it in a manner which improves the quality of life for residents, then that's an additional bonus. There's a program called the Carl Moyer Program, which has been reinstated by the state legislature. Previously has been used for a number of different functions, like having trucks at the Port of Oakland basically modernize and reduce their emissions and help the truckers out in terms of the cost of doing that. It helped in Southern California folks trade in older lawnmowers for newer ones. And so really by putting this forward now, I'm parallel tracking this with work that's being done at the state level through the Air District and ultimately the Air Resources Board in trying to determine what appropriate uses of some of the funds in the Carl Moore program are. Potentially, if this, and there are leaf blower ordinances in a number of different cities. Some are full bans, some are time limitations, what have you. I want to make sure that we have every option on the table if this is something the council is interested in doing, and if the council does decide at some point to go forward, that there are resources available for some of the small business owners, a lot of the gardeners, landscapers, obviously a lot of them are small businesses, and if there's going to be, if ultimately there's a decision to allow electric and not gas, that there be access to funds from the state level for grants or rebates to allow the ease for that to happen. An additional reason why I'm coming forward with this now is that I have been visited with, and I know other council members have, I don't know if anyone on the committee has, with concerned citizens that are considering putting forward a referendum just to ban leaf blowers altogether. Of course, that would be one of the many options the council would have before us. I think, and in talking to one of the individuals that was leading that effort, it was very reasonable, and I indicated to him that I'd like to take this to the council to have a full discussion of the policy implications and see what other cities are doing before the council chimes in on whether it's going to be a ban or electric, gas, what have you. So those are the number of issues that are involved, but as I mentioned, I'm not asking for any staff time or energy we put into this right now, simply just to have this considered when February does come around for the priority setting session, and at that point I'll have an update as to what's happening at the state level as well.
Okay.
Motion to refer to priority setting.
Second.
Motion is to refer to priority setting. Mr. Wall?
I always appreciate his honor, Councilmember Kalra's steadfast looking out for people's health and other matters. I have 2 leaf blowers, and I use mine primarily to clean the public streets with reference to the Municipal Regional Stormwater MPDS permit. I do not run it for an hour because I can't stand up for more than a few minutes anyway. This is going to be a tough one. There's a lot of residents, but as it's worded here, I guess I could, under the commercial purposes, pay myself to use the blower to benefit the city's streets and gutters. And I would thank His Honor once again, even though he's becoming the ban man. But good job. You're trying to help out the best way you can. Thank you.
We have a motion to refer this to priority setting session as requested. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed. That's approved.
And Mr. Mayor, just a
Yes.
comment on that priority session, it would actually be, I think, more productive if when it comes, it actually comes when some of the stuff that we've already voted on has been worked on, because some of the items that have been selected haven't even started. So my preference is we actually have a priority setting session when we can actually produce a body of work on what the council's already done. So if I think February is going to be way too early based on what I've been hearing on the workload that's already on staff. So bring it back at a reasonable time when this proposal and others can be judged, when there's actually bandwidth within staff.
We probably should talk about that in January, just status of the work and figure out, and not just plow ahead and do it in February without
Exactly.
regard to whether or not we could accomplish anything. So let's just tee this up for a Rules Committee meeting in January to discuss the scheduling. Rose?
And I'd still like to see the priority setting session have things come off the list as well as things added to the list.
How will that be done?
We need to discuss how to do it. I think we just keep adding things, and it just gets this big, huge list, and some things never get attended to at all. And I think that we should, if it's going to be priorities, we should decide what they are and start eliminating things as we're adding new things.
Well, to the mayor, council member, to the point though, if staff was able to complete the things that we've already given them.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with
No,
you. I'm
yeah,
adding another
but then we
point.
would have so much more to actually do, but it seems like we do these priority setting sessions way too early when there's already 10 things on the list that haven't been done. So it's my thing is bringing the thing back in a year when we actually get all this other stuff done, but we can have that conversation later.
Well, I would also suggest for the conversation in January, we talk about whether or not the priority setting session is just for ordinances, or if it's, we have talked about it maybe more broadly for other staff, major projects for the staff that should be considered at the same time an ordinance is considered. So that would be just another part of that conversation, I think, in January. Rose?
Yeah, I see a real difference between some of the ordinance work that is on that list and a project that has is real. It's part of the real economy, so to speak, and there's going to be things that will happen in the community and involves community members and providing services, or there's revenue to be expected from it. So I think I see a difference.
Yeah, there is.
Between those things.
I just think that's one of the things we should talk about.
But it just all takes
frame
staff
it up.
time, I suppose. So.
But I will note that one of the things that's been on the priority list is coming to us on Tuesday. That's the marijuana thing, which is not the end of the work, but the middle of the work. But at least it's one of those things we're working on. And that's a big
You
one.
make an assumption it passes?
Well, it's coming to us on Tuesday.
Mayor?
Yes.
Just one further point on the priorities. We have, the council changes every so many years, and so I'm just afraid some of the priorities get put on there when the person who wanted it on there is no longer around anymore. I just wonder if there's some things on that list. That's why I say I think we need to evaluate it. Maybe some of those things come off, especially if they have never gotten worked on. I mean, there might be a reason why, so.
Maybe we should vote on our top three and our bottom three. Work
Something
the
should
list from
come
both
off.
ends. Okay, we'll take that up in January at some time when it fits into our schedule. Our next item to consider is the schedule of the Rules and Open Government Committee, the work plan, and the meeting schedule. Anything to discuss specifically on that? Mr. Wall, you want to speak?
Just my continuing recommendation that you as the chair, Mr. Mayor, should have a greater pool of alternates, because it's very foreseeable that council members and/or yourself, for legitimate city business, go gallivanting around the country, and we don't have a quorum. And so I would think that there should be some form of a draft, in the true sense of the word. When it comes time for rules, who's ever stuck up on the 18th floor has to be hauled down here and make sure we have a quorum. And I think that that's the best way to do things, absent any other good ideas.
All right, any other comments or questions on, is there a motion?
Mayor,
Motion to
just,
approve.
just to
Second.
confirm, we are meeting January 2nd?
No.
No,
I have,
no.
Oh,
I have it on the other page without it.
I'm looking at the attachment.
January
That one.
Okay.
So we'll delete
Yeah, this
that
one
from
says that we
attachment
are.
A.
Okay.
Any others that we're not going to meet on that we want to make sure we
Thank you for that clarification.
get correct? All right, so we have a motion to approve, noting that January 2nd is not a Rules Committee meeting. On the motion, all in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. That's approved. Open forum. Martha O'Connell.
Yeah, I need to correct the record. I mumbled and was not clear, and Chair Rayburn quoted 8% of the seniors. Page 54 of the Nexus study, it's 30% of the seniors in Santa Clara County are at poverty level.
I was wondering about that.
David Wall.
Before you is a memo dated today entitled, "Council has yet to initiate legislation to compel the city manager to adopt auditor's recommendations." Now, it was also on item G on the public record for today's soiree. This is very serious business when the auditor, the costs involved, the cost of the audit, the cost of staff time to participate in the audit, and then once efficiencies or deficiencies are revealed, this initiates a clock, a theoretical clock that's real time for money. And the taxpayers are losing a lot of money by departmental directors that just take their time and not implement the recommendations, or just flat out not implement them at all. And we see the auditor have to come back to the council and say, hey, here's my list of delinquent department heads. They're not good with the program. And there's nothing to compel these department heads to do their job. So I suggest that there be some form of a loss of pay. Put them a nickel above the living wage until they, comply. These people are making a lot of money, have a lot of responsibility, and we're losing money, and these costs are compounding. It's just not static costs, they're compounding over time. So I'd like you to think about that and put that on your study session to figure out a reasonable way for the city manager and the city attorney our city auditor to get together and to implement these recommendations in a timely and thorough manner to serve the public. Thank you.
That concludes the open forum, concludes our meeting. We're adjourned.